The twin suns of Yautja Prime burned high above the Citadel arena, casting its cyclopean walls in shimmering gold and shadow. Within, the Colosseum roared with the guttural, animalistic howls of thousands of Yautja warriors. Tiered stands of the warrior clans shook with the stamping of armoured feet and the clatter of weapons against stone. It was not celebration. It was ritual. It was the eternal tradition of the hunt, sharpened and perfected in combat before the eyes of their kin. Two champions faced each other in the blood-soaked pit. One was massive, even by Yautja standards, towering, scarred, his dreadlocks bound with polished vertebrae. In his hands, a glaive as long as a man was tall, its edge glistening with ichor from past victories. The other was younger, leaner, his mandibles flexing as he circled his foe. His shoulder-mounted plasmacaster tracked in silence, 3 crimson dots occasionally flickering across his opponent's chest, then vanishing as the elder shifted his stance. The crowd roared. With a shriek of defiance, the younger launched forward, his combi stick flashing into its extended form, stabbing for the elder's throat. But the elder parried, the clash ringing like iron struck against stone. Sparks showered the sand. The two warriors whirled in a storm of blades, kicks, and guttural roars, each blow that landed shaking the arena floor. The fight escalated with brutal grace. The elder hooked the glaive behind the younger's ankle and swept him down into the dust. In an instant, the younger rolled, fired his plasmacaster, and the elder barely avoided the searing bolt that scorched the arena wall, leaving molten rock dripping like wax. The crowd howled its approval, their voices carrying to the heavens. And the heavens answered. Without warning, the twin suns dimmed. Above Yautja Prime, the serene sky warped and bled into a nightmare swirl of impossible colours. Clouds twisted into coils, lightning without thunder arced from horizon to horizon, and a great rift tore reality asunder. It was a storm not of weather, but of existence itself. A warp storm. The entire world shook as if gripped by the hand of a god. Mountains split, seas boiled, and the great predator citadel crumbled in showers of shattered stone. Predator ships in high orbit, sleek, silent craft that had long haunted the void, were dragged screaming into the rift. Some vanished whole, while others broke apart, their flaming carcasses scattered like meteors into the unknown beyond. In the arena, warriors fell to their knees as gravity twisted and broke. The elder and the younger were frozen mid-combat, staring skyward as the rift engulfed them all. Yautja Prime had vanished. In the far reaches of the Ultimar Segmentum, beneath the baleful glow of a swollen green moon, the jungle world of Katakan breathed its eternal hostility. Trees older than empires creaked under their own weight, their roots strangling one another in a battle as old as the planet itself. Carnivorous plants snapped at unseen prey. The air stank of rot, venom, and blood. This was not a world for man, and yet it was home to the hardest soldiers the Imperium had ever produced, the Katakan jungle fighters. That night, the skies tore open. A blazing comet screamed through the clouds, trailing a wake of fire. It split the jungle canopy with an impact that shook the continent, flattening trees for miles and setting the sky alight. But the comet was no rock. It was a ship, alien, blackened, its hull torn apart by stresses it had never been built to endure. The Yautja had come to Katakan. From the wreckage crawled 3 survivors. Their armor was battered, their cloaks sparking and flickering. One warrior dragged his broken comrade from the flames, while another ripped free the shattered door of an airlock and hurled it aside with a guttural roar. Around them lay the dead, dozens of their kind broken on the jungle floor, their trophies lost in the inferno. But the survivors were not prey. They were hunters. Their helmets recalibrated, their gauntlets pulsed with energy, scanners mapping the alien terrain, cycling through infrared, ultraviolet, and spectrums unknown to human sight. The jungle crawled with life, enemies, prey. But Katakan was eager to test them. The jungle struck first. A Katakan devil, a centipede-like horror longer than a battle tank, burst from beneath the shattered soil, its armored mandibles clacking like steel traps. Its dozens of clawed legs tore apart the earth as it surged toward the survivors. One predator uncloaked, roaring in defiance. His plasma caster lit the gloom, the bolt slamming into the devil's face, vaporizing half its mandibles. But the beast did not die. The oldest of the 3 leapt forward, his combi stick flashing, embedding deep into the creature's eye cluster. The beast shrieked, tail lashing, but the 3rd predator had already launched himself onto its back. With his wrist blades extended, he carved a molten red line down its armored plates until ichor sprayed the jungle floor. The devil collapsed in spasms, shaking the ground before falling still. The hunters roared in triumph. Their blood sang. This world was dangerous. It was worthy. But then their helmets chirped a warning. Approach detected. Multiple life signs. Human. Armed. The real hunt was about to begin. A squad of Katakan jungle fighters, veterans of 1,000 battles, moved through the trees with the silence of ghosts. Their commander, Sergeant Karras, raised a hand, signaling halt. His squad crouched low, their lasguns steady, their eyes scanning the smoke that rose above the treetops. Crash site ahead, he whispered, his voice like gravel. Eyes sharp. Emperor knows what fell out of the sky, but it hit like the throne itself. The soldiers crept forward, their knives as ready as their guns. Each Katakan was a giant of a man, muscle layered with scars and tattoos coiling down their arms. They weren't just soldiers. They were survivors of the deadliest world mankind had ever claimed, and they had no fear of the jungle. They reached the clearing. The wreck lay broken and smoking, a twisted black scar on the land. And there, standing amid the wreckage, were 3 towering shapes. The predators cloaked. Karras froze, instincts prickling. Something was wrong. The clearing was too still. The smoke was shifting unnaturally. He opened his mouth to warn his men when 3 dots appeared on the chest of Trooper Harkin. Harkin looked down. His eyes widened. The plasma bolt blew him apart in a flash of light and gore, scattering his remains across the trees. "Contact!" Karras roared. The jungle exploded into violence. One predator decloaked mid-jump, slamming into a Katakan with wrist blades flashing, cutting him open before the soldier could fire. Another spun, his disc weapon slicing through the throat of a second soldier, his head tumbling into the ferns. But the Katakans did not break. Lasgun fire roared, scarlet bolts cutting through the gloom. One predator staggered as a shot blew apart his cloaking generator, sparks spitting from his armor. He howled and charged, only to be met by 3 bayonets thrust into his chest. He slashed 2 down with his blades, but the third Katakan jammed a frag grenade under his mandibles and kicked him away. The blast took the predator's head off in a shower of green blood. The 2 remaining Yautja fought like gods of war. One used his combi stick to impale a Katakan through the chest, pinning him to a tree. Another fired his plasma caster again, vaporizing a jungle fighter mid-stride. But the Katakans swarmed. They weren't prey. They were the toughest the Imperium had. Sergeant Karras himself lunged at the elder predator, knife in hand. The alien swung its glaive, but Karras ducked low, rolling under the strike, and drove his blade up into the predator's abdomen. The alien shrieked, mandibles snapping in fury. It backhanded Karras, sending him crashing into the dirt. Before the killing blow could fall, 3 Katakans emptied their lasguns into the predator's head, burning through bone and armor until it collapsed in a heap of steaming flesh. The last predator, roaring in defiance, activated his wrist computer. The gauntlet blinked, symbols flashing, the countdown to a self-destruction. But Katakan reflexes were fast. Trooper Ven hurled a crack grenade, striking the predator square in the chest. The explosion tore the alien apart. His gauntlet blasted into fragments before it could detonate. The clearing fell silent. Smoke hung in the air. Bodies, both human and Xenos, lay strewn across the blood-soaked ground. The survivors gathered, their faces grim. Sergeant Karras wiped green blood from his knife and looked down at the corpse of the elder predator. Its mandibles hung slack, its eyes forever frozen in fury. "I've never seen anything like this before," muttered Ven, prodding the alien's armor with his boot. "It's not Orc, not Tyrannid, not even close." Karras knelt, prying the alien's wrist braids loose and holding them up to the light. The craftsmanship was unlike anything human hands had made. "Xenos," Karras said flatly. "Unidentified, brutal, dangerous, but not invincible." He rose, bloodied and unbowed. "Get the Vox. Report to High Command. Tell them Katakan has a new predator in the jungle." The squad moved out, leaving the burning wreck behind. Above them, the jungle canopy shifted. Something else moved in the shadows, watching, waiting. The hunt had only just begun. The citadel of Yautja Prime loomed over the crimson plains like a jagged crown of iron and bone. At its apex, the Predator King stood. He was a living legend even among his kind, over 3 meters tall, muscles corded like iron cables, his skin a tapestry of scars, burn marks, and ceremonial tattoos chronicling centuries of hunts. His mandibles flexed in constant motion, tasting the air as if every molecule carried the scent of prey. His armor, etched with trophies of countless fallen foes, glimmered under the sun, reflecting the blood of gladiators long dead. He roared, a sound that reverberated across the plains, shaking the bones of every warrior below. Go forth, hunt the worlds beyond. His words, guttural and commanding, carried the cadence of an alpha predator. The Yautja below understood immediately. It is the will of the king. Their ships, sleek and predatory, lined the launch bays. Plasma engines roared as their vessels ascended, black silhouettes against the burning sky. Each ship carried elite hunters, weapons humming with lethal intent, each warrior sworn to the code of the hunt. 4 ships peeled from the atmosphere, veering toward a neighboring system. One led, the others trailing, scanning space for potential prey. The first planet they approached appeared barren. Its surface was black, a wasteland of ash and twisted metal. Cities had collapsed months ago. Volcanic fissures ran like scars across continents. The wind, rich with iron and sulfur, whispered through the jagged cliffs. The lead ship broke orbit and descended, plasma flares erupting as it pierced the thinning atmosphere. The hull groaned and screeched, but it held. Inside, 4 Yautja warriors readied their weapons. Combi sticks snapped into extended form, plasma casters warmed with lethal hums, and wrist blades flexed with anticipation. The hatch opened. The first predator leapt onto the blackened soil, landing silently. Around him, the planet was silent, but somehow alive. Twisted creatures skittering through the rubble, sensing the intruders. The 4 hunters moved as one, shadows gliding over shattered ruins. Every step was calculated, measured. They spread out, scanning. Their eyes, augmented by thermal and multispectral vision, tracked movement imperceptible to human senses. Their prey was out there, and the air was thick with the scent of something alien, something wrong. Hours of searching brought nothing but the twisted echoes of a dead world. But then, as the sun dipped low, one predator ascended a jagged ridge. He froze, scanning the horizon. A sea of black writhed below. Thousands. Tyranids. The hunting party regrouped, crouching behind ruins, their eyes wide behind their helmets. The Tyranids moved with a singular purpose, a living tide of claws and teeth, endlessly shifting in grotesque patterns. They were unthinking, but lethal in numbers. Every inch of the terrain teemed with their presence. The Predator King's words rang in their minds. Hunt the worthy, spill blood, survive. They smiled behind their masks. This was a worthy hunt. The first predator uncloaked, leaping from the ridge, his combi stick extended in a blur of steel, slicing clean through a Tyranid hormigaunt before it could even react. Wrist blades followed, cutting another down mid-leap, ichor splattering across the volcanic stone. The second fired his plasma caster. 3 red dots danced across the Tyranid warrior's carapace before a searing bolt vaporized its head. The Tyranids roared, the noise a cacophony of pain and fury. The third predator swung his disc weapon, spinning in a deadly arc, cleaving through a line of gaunts as easily as wheat. Heads, limbs, and alien gore sprayed outward in a perfect display of lethal elegance. The fourth crouched, scanning the horde, then lunged with a predatory roar, his spear impaling a tyrannid from behind. He slashed, spun, and leapt again, moving like a shadow of death across the battlefield. Together, the hunting party became a storm. Every predator moved with precision, each kill calculated. Hundreds of tyrannids fell beneath their fury, their numbers staggering, yet no match for the skill of apex predators. The battlefield became a canvas of carnage. Plasma bolts seared the air, blades flashed red under alien blood, and every tyrannid that fell added to the legend of the hunters. The ground shook beneath the mass of the swarm, but the predators flowed through it like rivers of death, untouchable, relentless. The predators employed every tactic of their species. One launched wrist-mounted nets, ensnaring tyrannids mid-charge and tearing them apart. Another used the shoulder plasma cannon with surgical precision, vaporizing clusters before they could overwhelm the group. Cloaking devices flickered, making them disappear at the exact moment they were about to be struck. A tyrannid Carnifex attempted to charge, its massive claws tearing chunks from the earth. The predators reacted instantly. One spun in place, disc weapon cleaving open its chest. Another leapt, his spear driving into its skull, twisting, until the monstrous bioform fell with a deafening crash. The swarm kept coming, relentless. The predators were a storm, yes, but the tyrannids were an ocean, endless and adaptive. As the sun sank fully, casting long shadows over the blackened landscape, one predator broke from the main group. A lictor had ambushed him, dropping from above with razor-sharp claws and whip-like appendages. The two clashed in a blur of metal and sinew. The predator ducked, rolled and slashed, ripping into the alien's armored hide. But the lictor was fast, faster than anticipated. It dragged the predator toward a gaping fissure in the earth, its claws piercing his armor, its barbed tail wrapping around limbs. The predator fought with every ounce of strength, firing his plasma caster blindly, stabbing with his wrist blades. But the lictor was unyielding. With a final, bone-rattling roar, the tyrannid dragged the predator beneath the surface into a cavernous pit. The ground shook, the sound of tearing flesh echoing as the lictor disappeared into the dark. Below, the predator realized too late, the pit was alive. Walls lined with pulsating organic tissue, moving in time with the writhing creatures contained within. From the shadows, a massive form surged. A new tyrannid, enormous, its carapace shifting, tendrils probing. It swallowed the predator whole, its maw closing around him as the alien DNA began to fuse with the tyrannid's genetic mass. Above, the other three predators could only watch, their senses alert as the ground trembled. Something had changed, something dangerous. The hunt had begun, but it was no longer just the predators hunting, for a new creature was growing. The sky above the blackened, ash-choked world split with the roar of engines. The blood angels descended like angels of death, their drop pods piercing the clouds of ash and smoke that lingered from the predator's massacre of the Tyranid swarm. The ground trembled as the pods slammed into the shattered surface, sending dust and debris into the air. 4 warriors emerged, their crimson power armor gleaming even beneath the ashen sky. Captain Cassian led the descent, towering in his armor, the angelic sigils of Sanguinius etched deep into his breastplate. Flanked by 3 veteran assault marines, their jump packs hissed, ready to respond to any threat. Cassian's eyes swept the battlefield. Thousands of Tyranid corpses lay strewn across the volcanic plains, torn apart in ways that defied normal comprehension. Limbs, heads, and carapace littered the ground. The corpses bore marks of a predator, unlike any he had faced. Blades slicing with surgical precision, plasma burns etched deep into chitin, and alien trophies taken from the Tyranid corpses. Unnatural, Cassian muttered. Weapons. Xenos in design. We are not alone here. The angels split, each taking a different direction to locate the remaining swarm. Cassian advanced forward, scanning the horizon with his augmented optics. In the distance, movement caught his attention. 3 massive silhouettes roamed the jagged terrain, tearing into the last of the Tyranid horde with lethal efficiency. They moved with predatory grace, tossing decapitated Tyranids aside, their plasma cannons roaring, their spears piercing flesh, their disc weapons slicing through clusters of Xenos. The Blood Angel watched, impressed, even as a warrior sworn to kill Xenos. Cassian keyed his vox. High Command, he transmitted. Coordinates confirmed. 3 unidentified Xenos present. They are extremely lethal. I repeat, 3 unknown entities. They are engaging the remaining Tyranids. Static answered him. He ignored it, his eyes narrowing as the Predator Elder, older, larger, and clearly the leader, turned his head, hearing the Vox transmission, and focused on Cassian. The plasma cannon on his shoulder whined, charging. Cassian barely dove aside as 3 pinpoint beams seared the air where he had stood mere seconds before. The heat scorched the air, leaving singed marks in the volcanic stone. The Predator Elder growled, drawing his combi stick and wrist blades. He stepped forward with an unmistakable purpose, every moment radiating respect and challenge. The 2 younger predators flanked him, their spears ready, their disc weapons spinning. Yet they did not attack. Honor dictated patience. They would not strike first against a worthy opponent. Cassian activated his chainsword, the motor screaming as teeth of holy steel began to spin. Bolt pistol in his other hand, he advanced, careful, measuring the distance to the Elder. The battlefield was littered with Tyranid corpses, their cries silenced forever. A testament to this unknown Xenos' prowess. The Elder moved like a shadow cast by the dying light, his every step a calculated lethal motion honed over centuries of hunting the deadliest prey in the galaxy. His combi stick coiled in his grip, ready to strike, while his wrist blades extended with a hiss of tensioned metal. The air shimmered around them. Sparks danced across the cracked volcanic stone, as if the world itself, anticipated the coming clash. Cassian advanced. Chainsword roaring, he lunged, a storm of whirring teeth aimed directly at the alien's midsection. The predator pivoted with uncanny speed, parrying with the wrist blades in a shower of sparks. The sheer force of the impact made the ground beneath them vibrate. Behind them, the two younger predators circled, their presence like coiled vipers. They snarled behind their mask-like helmets, guttural growls vibrating through their armor. But honor held them back. Their respect for their elder and the code of the hunt prevented them from striking until the apex of the battle had revealed itself. Cassian didn't pause. His chainsword whirred, spinning in a deadly arc as he feigned left, then swung high, forcing the predator to duck and roll. The predator's armor glinted with blood and ash, yet he moved like liquid steel, countering every strike with precision. The elder whipped his combi stick in a wide arc, slicing through the air with a hiss of lethal promise, narrowly missing Cassian's helm by inches. With a roar, Cassian leapt forward, the teeth of his chainsword spinning, catching the elder off guard for a fraction of a heartbeat. He struck the shoulder of one of the younger predators, tearing through the alien's reinforced plating. The predator staggered, clawed foot skidding across the ash, before crashing to the ground with a tortured scream. Cassian didn't hesitate. His bolt pistol flared, searing another of the younger hunter's chests in a brilliant eruption of plasma and fire. The alien's scream echoed across the battlefield. The two fallen predators writhed, struggling to rise, yet the elder remained poised, observing. His mandibles flexed, tasting the air, gauging the skill and intent of this human warrior who dared face him alone. His eyes, burning with the fire of countless hunts, locked on Cassian. A guttural click resonated deep in his throat, a sound that carried the weight of recognition. This was no ordinary human. Cassian, lowering his chainsword slightly, allowed himself a moment to meet the predator's gaze through the gap in its armor. "Ugly Xenos scum," he muttered with a dry, sardonic humor. The elder tilted his head, an almost imperceptible nod of respect, and slowly removed his helmet. Scarred, leathery skin, ancient mandibles snapping and flexing, and eyes burning with unyielding predator instinct were revealed. In return, Cassian pulled back his own helmet, the crimson visor glinting with reflections of ash and blood. Two apex hunters now stood exposed to one another, both sizing up their strength, skill, and intent. Steel met flesh and armor in a violent symphony. Cassian lunged again, cutting with surgical precision. Sparks and molten ichor sprayed into the ash-choked air. The elder twisted, ducked, and rolled with inhuman speed, using every ounce of his alien physiology to counter and redirect attacks. But Cassian's speed and power allowed him to stay ahead, always. He anticipated each strike and struck back with devastating force. The elder countered in kind, spinning low, swinging an arc aimed at Cassian's torso. Sparks erupted with a showering hiss as chainsword met wrist blade, the friction igniting a fusion of heat and ozone in the air. Cassian responded with brutal intent, slashing directly at the predator's midsection, cutting deep into reinforced armor and forcing the elder backward. Each movement became a dance, a deadly, intricate ballet of blood, fire, and metal. The elder predator was relentless, blocking and countering every assault, his speed and reflexes nearly preternatural. But Cassian, drawing on centuries of battle experience, adapted and struck again. Using his bolt pistol with lethal precision, each shot finding a gap in alien armor. The Elder's eyes burned with respect and fury. But the Blood Angel's superior strength, training, and experience allowed him to press the advantage. Cassian stepped back, preparing to end the duel once and for all. The Elder, he was exhausted, wounded, but refused to give in. Then the sound hit him, a hideous roar from behind. He spun in an instant, bolter raised, and saw it, a monstrous hybrid emerging from the Tyranid-infested ground. The creature was a horrifying fusion, Yautja DNA, twisting into the endless adaptability of the Tyranid. Carapace gleamed, claws snapping, tendrils writhing. Its maw opened, revealing jagged rows of teeth, and it lunged forward, moving faster than instinct should allow. The Elder Predator, sensing the new threat, dropped his stance and faced the hybrid. Cassian hesitated, realizing that the fight had changed. Honor demanded he allow the Predator its duel. The Elder growled, claws and blades ready, eyes locked on the monstrosity, and for the first time, the hunter became the hunted. The hybrid's screech shook the volcanic plain, a sound of malice and hunger. Cassian's chainsword hummed as he prepared to fight alongside the Elder, for his strength alone might not be enough. The volcanic winds screamed across the shattered battlefield, carrying the stench of Tyranid blood, ozone, and ash. Fire spiraled skyward as the monstrous hybrid lumbered from the fissured ground, its towering flame blotting out the crimson haze behind it. It was a grotesque abomination. Tyranid carapace fused with alien musculature, mandibles like a Yautja's jutting from its warped face, and claws dripping acidic venom. From its shoulders sprouted grotesque plasma growths, biocannons that pulsed with malignant energy. Cassian leveled his bolt pistol, chainsword screaming as he set his stance. His breath came slow and steady, every nerve alive with battle lust. Yet even he, captain of the Blood Angels, felt a rare thing stir in his chest. Hesitation. This was no ordinary Tyranid, no mindless beast of the swarm. This was something worse. A Tyranid that had consumed the DNA of an apex predator and twisted it into its endless hunger. Beside him, the Predator Elder snarled, mandibles flaring wide. He flexed his wrist blades, clicking them together with a sound like ringing steel. His spear extended with a hiss. The Elder had no need for words. His stance spoke volumes. This battle was his to claim, his hunt to finish. Yet when the hybrid roared again, spitting a volley of acidic ichor into the volcanic stone, Cassian and the Elder moved in unison. For a heartbeat, man and Xenos were not enemies, but allies. Two predators facing a greater monster. The duel was suspended. The battle had begun. The hybrid charged. The ground cracked beneath its bulk as it lunged with terrifying speed, claws wide, mandibles snapping. Cassian dove to the side, his armor gouging a trail in the ash. He raised his bolt pistol and fired. Explosive rounds slammed into the hybrid's torso. each detonation blasting chunks of carapace into shards. The creature shrieked, but did not falter. The predator darted in, faster than the eye could track. His spear flashed, slicing into the hybrid's side, ichor spraying in an arc. The abomination spun, tail spinning round, smashing into the predator with the force of a thunderbolt. The elder was hurled across the field, colliding with a jagged obsidian spire. Cassian seized the moment. He ignited his jump pack and vaulted into the air, descending with his chainsword raised. The weapon roared as it carved into the hybrid's shoulder, tearing through sinew and bone. The creature howled, claw sweeping upward. Cassian's guard came a moment too slow. The blow smashed into his chest, throwing him into the dust. His armor screamed in protest. The hybrid loomed over him, its second claw posed to impale, but before it could strike, the elder reappeared in a blur of motion. His plasma caster flared, 3 beams converging on the hybrid's chest. Flesh and bone vaporized in molten explosions, forcing the monster back with a bellow of pain. Cassian rose to his feet, grimacing. His chest burned where the claw had struck, but he pressed on. He locked eyes with the elder for a fleeting instant. No words were exchanged, yet there was an unspoken understanding. They would strike together. They moved like predators on the hunt. Cassian surged forward, chainsword a screaming halo of death, while the Yautja circled wide, plasma bolts searing into the hybrid's flank. The abomination flailed, snapping its mandibles, spewing acid into the air. The hybrid lunged at the elder, claws scything downward. With impossible speed, the predator caught the blow on crossed wrist blades, sparks showering as alien steel clashed against tyrannid armor. He growled, muscles straining, and twisted, plunging his combi stick into the creature's abdomen. Cassian struck at the same moment. His chainsword bit into the hybrid's neck, tearing through muscle and carapace. The monster shrieked, black blood spraying across the battlefield. But it was not over. Its tail lashed, smashing into Cassian's side and throwing him to the ground once more. The predator elder seized the opening. With a roar that kicked up the ash, he vaulted onto the hybrid's back, his clawed feet digging into its flesh. The beast bucked and writhed, but the predator clung on, driving his wrist blades into its flesh again and again. Black blood cascaded like a fountain, spraying across his armor. The hybrid staggered, reeling. Cassian rose, battered but unbroken, and fired his bolt pistol in a relentless barrage. Explosions riddled the creature's chest and skull, staggering it further. The predator elder roared one final time and plunged his wrist blades directly beneath the hybrid's skull. The blades drove deep, severing brain and spine in a single brutal strike. The hybrid convulsed, shrieking in pain, before collapsing in a thunderous crash. The elder rode it down, buried beneath its massive corpse. The battlefield fell silent. Only the hiss of cooling blood and the crackle of molten stone remained. Cassian stood still, breathing hard. His chainsword dangled at his side. Slowly, the hybrid's corpse shifted. A clawed hand pushed free of the gore. The predator emerged, covered head to toe in blood and ichor, his mandibles flaring in a victorious snarl. He had claimed the kill. For a moment, Cassian hesitated. His bolt pistol was raised, his chainsword ready. But he did not strike immediately. He looked into the predator's eyes that burned not with mindless hatred, but with the fire of a hunter who lived by honor. Cassian saw himself reflected there, a predator, an angel of death, bound by duty and blood. The elder tilted his head. He did not raise his weapon. For the briefest heartbeat, there was respect between them. Two warriors, two apex predators, acknowledging the other's strength. Then the moment shattered. A thunderous crack split the air. The predator elder's head exploded in a spray of bone and ichor. His corpse fell to the ground, headless. Cassian spun, eyes wide. His squad had arrived. 3 assault marines stood behind him, bolters smoking, their expressions hard and unyielding. They had seen only a Xenos, an alien monster standing over their captain, and they acted without hesitation. Cassian lowered his chainsword slowly. His heart clenched with a rare pang of regret. He looked down at the predator's corpse. "You deserved better," he muttered. To his men, he said only, "This was no ordinary Xenos. It bore intelligence, it wielded tools, weapons, and something I confess I've never seen in a Xenos: honor." The Marines exchanged uneasy glances, but none spoke. Cassian's voice hardened. "We must report this to the Ordo Xenos. They must see this. The galaxy must know." The Marines obeyed. Above them, the ashen sky rumbled with distant thunder. Far away, in the void above a different star system, another Yautja ship glided through the black. Its hull bore scars from the warp storm that had torn Yautja Prime into this cursed galaxy, but its engines still burned with the fire of the hunt. The ship drifted silently through the stars, cloaked in shimmering light. Ahead of it, a massive orc warship loomed. Crude, jagged plates of metal formed its hulking frame, festooned with gun barrels, spikes, and crude glyphs daubed in blood. Fires burned across its decks, and the echo of brutal laughter carried even through the void of space. The Predator ship angled closer. Its hull shimmered and vanished, cloaked from sight. With predatory grace, it latched onto the orc vessel's flank, magnetic clamps locking with silent finality. Within, a hunting party of Yautja readied their weapons. Plasma casters whined as they charged, wrist blades extended with metallic hisses. Disc weapons spun in eager hands. A hatch opened. The hunters slipped inside. Invisible phantoms cloaked in shimmering distortion. They moved through the darkened corridors like ghosts. Their steps were silent, their breathing controlled. Up ahead, guttural voices roared in crude laughter. Orc boys, dozens of them, lumbered through the corridors, blades and sluggers in hand. The air reeked of oil, blood, and fungus. The Yautja hunters crouched low, their masks locking onto heat signatures. The orcs glowed like bonfires in their vision. One predator clicked his mandibles, another tightened his grip on a spear, a third extended his wrist blades, ichor from a past kill still dripping from the steel. Together, they prepared to strike. The first orc never saw them. A boy lumbered down a corridor, gnawing at a rusted hunk of metal as if it were food. He grunted, spat, and adjusted the crude slugger at his hip. In his vision, the shadows flickered. For a heartbeat, he thought he saw something shimmer. Then a wrist blade punched clean through his throat, severing windpipe and spine in a single thrust. The orc gurgled, his blood spraying the wall, before being dragged silently into the darkness. Further ahead, another boy scratched himself and turned at the sound of metal clattering. His tusked grin widened. "Huh, sneaky gits," he chuckled. Then a smart disc whirled through the air, cutting him in half at the waist. His torso fell one way, his legs another, entrails hissing against the heated metal floor. The Yautja moved like shadows, cloaked and silent, their heat vision scanning the crude passageways. The orcs burned bright in their visors, a sea of roaring bonfires, but their movements were unpredictable. One warrior leaned against a bulkhead, claws buried in the neck of a boy, watching as two more passed unaware. He released the corpse only after the others had gone, letting it fall silently into a pool of green blood. But stealth could not hold forever. It was when the sixth orc body fell that the shouting began. A boy stumbled into a chamber filled with his fallen kin. Their bodies were strewn across the floor in grotesque poses, limbs severed, their torsos punctured, skulls split by plasma burns. He blinked once, twice, and then his tiny brain caught up with the truth. "We's under attack," he bellowed, voice shaking the walls. The roar spread like fire. Dozens of boys came thundering through the corridors, their boots slamming against iron, sluggers raised, choppers glinting. They crashed into the shadows, firing wildly, spraying bullets in every direction. The Yautja adapted instantly. One uncloaked and hurled his comedy stick, skewering two boys through the chest in a single strike. Another launched a plasma bolt into the mob, vaporizing three greenskins in a boiling flash of blue fire. A third predator leapt onto an orc's back, driving his wrist blades deep into its chest before spinning and gutting another. But the orcs did not fall like lesser prey. Even as plasma seared their flesh, even as blades ripped them apart, they fought on. One boy, missing half an arm, smashed a predator across the jaw with his chopper before dying to a spear through the gut. Another, on fire from plasma burns, leapt screaming and tackled a Yautja to the floor, biting and clawing until his head was torn off. The hunters clicked to one another, changing their tactics. They were impressed. These creatures were crude, brutish, and chaotic, but they were also resilient beyond expectation. Each kill was costly, each mistake punished. The 6 Yautja became 3. By the time the survivors pushed deeper into the hulk, blood and smoke coated their armor. Their comrades lay scattered among the dead greenskins, broken but not dishonored. The 3 remaining warriors moved as one, stalking into a cavernous chamber where hundreds of orcs once feasted. Now it was silent. The walls were painted with orc blood. Corpses littered the floor, shredded, burned, decapitated. The silence did not last. A thunderous roar shook the chamber. From the far end, a war boss lumbered forward, his massive frame towering over even the largest of boys. Armor of scrap iron and crude glyphs clattered as he stomped closer, his clawed gauntlets sparking with energy. Behind him strode two knobs, each the size of an ogrin, weapons dripping gore. The war boss sniffed the air, his lip curled. "There you are," he growled, voice rumbling like distant thunder. "Sneaky gits, killing boys from the shadows. Cowards." His voice echoed through the chamber. The Yautja helmet translated his guttural roar into clipped meaning. The three hunters tilted their heads, mandibles clicking. Honor demanded a response. One by one, the predators shimmered and decloaked, revealing themselves in full. Plasma casters hummed, wrist blades extended, combi sticks flared with energy. They pointed, not at the mob, not at the lesser orcs, but at the three largest warriors, the knobs and their war boss. The orcs grinned. Finally, the war boss spat, slamming his claw into the ground. A proper fight. The chamber erupted. One predator lunged at a knob, his wrist blade flashing. The knob swung a crude chopper the size of a man, sparks flying as it clashed against alien steel. With speed beyond mortal eyes, the predator sidestepped, carved deep into the orc's arm, and sliced again, severing it at the shoulder. The knob bellowed, blood spraying like a fountain. A final strike drove the blade through its skull, splitting it wide. The orc fell twitching, headless. The second duel was less merciful. Another predator clashed with the war boss himself. Plasma bolts seared into the boss's armor, staggering him, but he roared and charged anyway. The predator struck with his combi stick, spearing the war boss through the side, but the beast only laughed, snapping the shaft in two with one massive hand. Then he seized the predator by the throat. The warrior slashed, wrist blades cutting deep, but the orc's strength was overwhelming. The war boss hammered him against the wall, again and again, until the chamber shook. Bones cracked, armor splintered. With a final bellow, the war boss tore the predator's head and spine free in one brutal motion, raising it high with a triumphant roar. Blood sprayed. The orcs howled in savage delight. The last predator faced the remaining knob. His smart disc whirled through the air, severing the knob's hand. He followed with a barrage of plasma bolts, then leapt, driving his wrist blades deep into the orc's chest. The knob thrashed, claws raking deep wounds across the hunter's torso. Even mortally wounded, the predator fought with savage fury, ripping the knob apart piece by piece until it finally collapsed, lifeless. The predator staggered, ichor and blood pouring from his wounds. He laughed, a harsh clicking sound as he raised his wrist computer. The orc saw the red symbols flare to life. The war boss snarled. "What's he doing?" The predator roared one final time. The countdown began. The explosion tore through the chamber like the breath of a dragon. Fire consumed everything, ripping through walls, vaporizing corpses, and cracking steel. The shockwave thundered across the ship, tearing decks apart and hurling orcs screaming into the void. A quarter of the warship vanished in the blast, burning debris scattering into pieces like meteors. When the fire faded, only ruin remained. Far across the ship, where the explosion was little more than a distant quake, orcs hammered scrap metal into shape, repairing as they always did. One mech wiped grime from his face and squinted toward the smoke rising from the far decks. "What in Gork's name was that?" he muttered. An orc boy shrugged, still grinning. "Some sneaky, pointy-headed gits came aboard. Was a good scrap. Then one went all explodey and blew up the lot of them." The mech snorted. "Huh. Sounds fun." And they laughed, already forgetting, already hungry for the next fight. On Terra, deep within the vaults of the Ordo Xenos, an Inquisitor bent over his desk. Before him lay a dozen reports, fragments of transmissions, scattered data from devastated worlds, a blood angel's record of a warrior with mandibles, a guard sergeant's tale of invisible hunters among Tyranids, a rogue trader's whispered fear of pointy-headed demons seen on the edge of the segmentum. Each report spoke of the same thing: a new Xenos, a new predator. The Inquisitor steepled his fingers, his eyes cold as the void. "So a new filth has risen," he murmured. "Very well. We shall see who is hunter and who is prey." The void was silent. Deep within the galaxy, the Inquisitor's ship, the Eternal Vigil, drifted in orbit above a dead, cratered world. Its hull gleamed with muted light, a predator among the stars. In the bridge, the Inquisitor moved slowly between hololithic screens, his robes trailing behind him like shadows cast by a dying sun. Each report, each fragment of data, had been studied, cross-referenced, dissected. Travelling in small groups, seeking the strongest adversaries, leaving bodies as warnings, he murmured to himself. The Inquisitor's eyes flicked to the holomap, where red markers indicated systems recently ravaged by unknown forces. Predators, he thought, though he did not yet know their origin. Highly intelligent, highly dangerous, cunning beyond any Xenos we have catalogued. He leaned closer to the data slate, noting patterns. The reports shared similarities. Small, specialized groups. They struck where enemies were most dangerous. Space Marines, Tyranid swarms, even orcs who refused to yield. They adapted, they learned, and they disappeared. "Activate the bait protocol," he commanded. His voice was low but deliberate. "Deploy the Death Watch squad to the surface. Keep all weapons loaded, all systems as normal, but disable our own stealth field. We want them to know we're here." The bridge hummed with quiet obedience. Mechanicus augurs and servitors moved with precision, orchestrating a trap that would make even the most disciplined Xenos falter. Below, the dead planet waited. Its surface was a jagged, ashen wasteland, craters gouged from eons of meteor impacts and long-dead volcanic fire. Dust and ash choked the skies, a permanent twilight that made the land seem alive with shadow. Into this barren graveyard, the Death Watch descended, their bolters slung, their power armor gleaming dimly in the grey light. They moved with caution, aware that unseen eyes were watching. They patrolled in tight formation, scanning, listening, hunting. But as careful as they were, the predator's sensors were superior. In the vacuum of the void, cloaked and silent, a Yautja ship drifted unseen, its hull shimmering, invisible to even the most advanced Imperial scanners. Or so they thought. Hours passed. The Inquisitor on the Eternal Vigil monitored their movements, tracing patterns, noting every twitch of telemetry, every heat signature. "They are intelligent," he said finally, almost to himself. "They understand strength. They respect it. They seek it." And then they struck. The Predator ship dropped from orbit like a shadow of death. Its cloak rippled, the shimmer of its technology bending light around it as it touched down silently in the dead plains. Deathwatch, unaware of the ship's presence, continued their patrol, scanning craters, checking ruins for life. The predators stalked with precision. One dipped into a ravine, another disappeared behind jagged rock spires. The hunting party spread out, invisible. Their heat vision marked the Deathwatch clearly, each marine a glowing target, each pulse of biosignature a beacon of challenge. The first attack was quiet, surgical. A marine turned a corner, his bolter ready, when a wrist blade slammed into his back. Yet the Predator had underestimated its foe. The remaining Deathwatch reacted instantly. In perfect unison, bolters spat fire. Plasma bolts scorched the ground, and the Predator fell, body riddled with rounds, its cloak failing under repeated impact. Another moved to flank, a disc spinning through the air. But the Marines were prepared. Chains of fire erupted, smart disc ricocheting against power armor. Bolter rounds tore through muscle and flesh alike. One Predator lunged for a Marine's throat, only to be caught by a punch that shattered its ribs, knocking it unconscious into a net. The battlefield was chaos. The Predators attempted to strike with precision, but the Deathwatch were apex predators of their own kind. Their training, their equipment, their cohesion was unmatched. One by one the Yautja fell. Plasma burns scorched their hides. Their wrist blades shattered against ceramite. Their own traps turned against them. And yet the final Predator remained. Wounded, bleeding, but alive. Its eyes glowed beneath its mask, calculating, intelligent. Hours later, the last Yautja hung in chains aboard the Eternal Vigil. Its body bore the scars of battle, cuts smoking faintly. Its armor was cracked and chipped. The Inquisitor approached, flanked by Deathwatch veterans, each bolter ready, each face obscured beneath their helm. A crude translation device sat on the floor, wires snaking into the Predator's mask. The Inquisitor's voice cut through the silence. "You are far from your home. Tell me, Xenos, where do you come from?" The Predator tilted its head, observing. Its mandibles clicked. A low, guttural growl emanated from its throat. Words would not come. Only a laugh, sharp and mocking. The Inquisitor's eyes narrowed. "You understand me. You have technology capable of communication. You can respond. Speak." Or, he raised a prod. Electricity arced across the device, slamming through the Predator's body in pulses. The Xenos did not scream. It only laughed. Its clicking echoing in the chamber like a challenge. Hours passed. The Inquisitor tried every method. Vibration, sonic resonance, chemical stimulants, and electricity. But still the Predator refused. It observed, learned, and mocked the Inquisitor's attempts. Finally, the Inquisitor drew his bolt pistol. "Then you die, as all that resist do," he murmured. The bolter round struck true. Blood and brain sprayed the walls. The body slumped in the chains. "Rend it. Examine it. Know our enemy," the Inquisitor commanded. His death watch moved with mechanical precision, tearing into the Predator's body, cataloguing every organ, every plate, every weapon integrated into its flesh and bone. Hours later, the Inquisitor's chamber was silent, except for the low hum of machinery. The Predator's body had been reduced to a specimen of study. Yet the Inquisitor knew this was only the beginning. A sudden clatter of armoured boots echoed down the corridor, slicing through the chamber's oppressive stillness. The Inquisitor's gaze flicked toward the doorway. A figure burst in, an agent of the Ordo Xenos. Robes singed from servos and arcane circuitry, its eyes wide, chest heaving. "My lord," the agent gasped, his voice cracking with urgency. We have something. From the ship, the Xenos vessel itself." The Inquisitor's head tilted, fingers steepled, his eyes narrowing beneath the shadow of his hood. "Explain," he said. Each syllable was measured and deliberate. The agent stumbled forward, placing a data slate on the table, its screens flickering with cascading glyphs, sigils, and star charts that pulsed with eerie alien energy. "We've managed to decode it," the agent continued. "The vessel's navigational array, its flight protocols, the warp integration, it's unlike anything we've catalogued before. The computations, the adjustments for stealth and traversal, they're far beyond Imperium comprehension. Every vector, every course correction suggests planning, intent, intelligence." The Inquisitor's gaze sharpened, scanning the glyphs as if they might speak to him. Then the agent's hands trembled over the slate, swiping to reveal a glowing, triangulated path through the stars. "The trajectory, the origin," the agent whispered. "It's a system, an entire homeworld, coordinates unknown to the Imperium until now, but our decryption indicates its designation. They call it Yautja Prime." The Inquisitor leaned forward, eyes narrowing beneath the shadow of his hood, lips curling into a faint, cold smile. "Interesting," he murmured. "So we are not dealing with mere Xenos raiders. They are organized. And now, we know where they come from." The warp parted like torn veils of fire. A ripple of impossible light bled into real space as the Eternal Vigil, strike cruiser of the Ordo Xenos, emerged from the Imperium with its prow forward and its lance batteries primed. Its hull was painted in the cold light of a distant star, the battered sigils of the Inquisition etched into armor plates, scarred by centuries of war. Inquisitor Cale Verrain, stood at the command pulpit, his robes of deep crimson swaying in the artificial gravity. His face was lit by the glow of screens and hololithic projections, his gaze fixed upon the dark planet that filled the view screens. It hung in silence, vast, green and black, a world of oceans, jungles and mountains. Alien spires jutted from the atmosphere, heat signatures pulsed faintly across the continents, and orbital platforms glimmered faintly like insects against a colossal beast. Yautja Prime, Varane whispered, the name tasting like prophecy on his tongue. The so-called heart of the hunters. Crewmen bent over their consoles. Mechanicus adepts chanted binaric litanies, and gunnery officers whispered blessings over the barrels of macro cannons. The ship bristled with weaponry, its void shields shimmering faintly as the Eternal Vigil took up a hunting posture in orbit. Maintain distance. Passive scans only, the Inquisitor commanded. His voice was cold iron. We are here to observe, not yet to conquer. But Yautja Prime was not a world that tolerated observation. Contact! The cry cut across the bridge like a blade. Runic sigils flared across the Auga displays. Small shapes broke from the shadow of the planet. Fast-moving, sleek vessels shaped like blades of obsidian glass. Predator warships, much smaller than Imperial frigates, but swift, agile, and bristling with alien weapons. Their hulls shimmered as cloaking fields unraveled, revealing serrated prows lined with plasma turrets. Multiple craft incoming, vectoring intercept. Varane did not flinch. Engage the void shields, ready lances. The Eternal Vigil turned like a predator in its own right, colossal thrusters burning blue. A predator ship fired first, a barrage of plasma bolts streaking through the void like green lightning. They smashed against the cruiser's shields, rippling the void field, but failing to breach. Return fire. The cruiser's dorsal lances erupted, beams of white-hot energy carving across the stars. One predator vessel disintegrated instantly, its hull spitting into multiple fragments before vanishing in a brief sunburst of fire. Another managed to spiral away, its cloak re-engaging, disappearing into the void. But for every ship destroyed, 3 more appeared. The void was alive with hunting craft, darting and weaving in perfect synchrony. Outgunned, yet never outmatched. Not here, above their homeworld. The Predator ship struck with coordination worthy of any Astartes strike wing. Their weapons hammered the cruiser's flanks, targeting shield generators with uncanny precision. One craft darted close enough to unleash boarding harpoons, massive barbed spikes trailing chains of alien alloy, embedding themselves in the cruiser's armor. Servitors scrambled to sever them as Predator warriors attempted to board. Repel all boarders, vent the outer decks, Varane ordered. His voice was calm as steel, but his eyes blazed with fury. The ship shook as orbital defense cannons on the planet below awakened. From jagged towers hidden beneath jungle canopies, vast plasma batteries roared, hurling bolts of molten death into space. One struck the cruiser's shields, flaring them brilliant blue before dissipating harmlessly. The Eternal Vigil endured, void fields reinforced by sacred rites and ancient technology. Shields at 72%, one Mechanicus adept intoned. Varane gave a cold smile. That's more than enough. Macro cannons thundered, hammering the Yautja fleet. Lance batteries sliced apart entire wings of hunting craft. Predator wrecks fell like firebrands into their own atmosphere. A rain of burning steel upon the jungles below. A defense tower was gutted, its molten carcass collapsing into the canopy in a shockwave of ruin. For every strike the Yautja delivered, the Vigil answered with tenfold fury. One Yautja ship dared the impossible, decloaking within meters of the cruiser's flank. It rammed home. Alien grapples punched into the hull. Boarding pods burrowed through steel, and a war party of cloaked hunters stormed into the breach. The lower decks became a slaughterhouse. Yautja warriors tore through servitors and armsmen, wrist blades dripping, their plasma casters roaring. But they had misjudged their prey. Inquisitorial stormtroopers met them in tight formation, bolters barking, flamers purging entire corridors in fire. The decks shook with war cries, the clash of steel and the roar of guns. A predator leapt, impaling a trooper through the chest, only to be melted apart by a melter gun, its body liquefied in fire. Another tried to cloak, but Auspec's sweeps painted it in crimson, and a volley of mass-reactive shells reduced it to a pile of limbs. Minutes later, silence fell. The last predator roared in defiance as a power fist shattered its skull. Boarding repelled, came the report. Casualties acceptable. Varane's jaw tightened. This was not mere aggression. This was a warning. The battle in orbit stretched on, but the eternal vigil remained unbroken. Its void shield shimmered. Its hull was scarred, but far from crippled. Predator ships lay shattered in space, orbital defenses reduced to ruin. At last, the planet itself revealed its fury. Dozens of concealed batteries lanced upward in a coordinated volley, desperate to drive the cruiser back. The bridge filled with red runes, impact shaking the hull. But still the vigil endured. The Mechanicus officer turned, vox harsh with static. Lord Inquisitor, our objectives are complete. We have the measure of their fleet, their defenses, their world. Varane's fingers drummed against the command pulpit. Then he spoke. Let them taste the judgment of the Emperor. Target their strongholds. Burn their skies. The eternal vigil unleashed its fury. Macro cannons roared, hurling mountains of steel into the atmosphere. Lance batteries stabbed downward, white-hot beams tearing cities, fortresses, and spires to ash. The jungles boiled, the oceans frothed and bled steam. Predator temples crumpled beneath the fury of a godlike bombardment. On the surface, Yautja warriors roared to the heavens as fire rained down. Entire hunting grounds were consumed in apocalyptic flame. Their king stood upon a mountain, watching the skies burn. His mandibles flared in defiance. Only when the surface glowed with ruin did Varane give his final command. Helm, warp translation. Take us home. With a thunderous roar, the eternal vigil turned from the shattered world. Predator ships, broken and scattered, could do little but watch as the cruiser ignited its engines. Reality tore open, swallowing the Inquisition's vessel in a storm of fire and shadow. In its wake, Yautja Prime smouldered, scarred, bloodied, but unbroken. On the surface of Yautja Prime, the Predator King stood upon the balcony of a fortress temple carved into the mountainside. His body was colossal, scarred from centuries of hunts, his crown of bone and metal etched with the trophies of 1,000 kills. Before him stretched the army of his people, tens of thousands of Yautja warriors, their armor gleaming, their weapons primed, cloaks flickering like storms of light. They roared as one, a sound that shook the stone beneath their feet, a primal chorus of war. The king raised his spear, its blade catching the light of the twin suns. His voice was guttural thunder, amplified by ancient technology. Off-worlders dare strike at our heart. They test our walls, our skies, our strength. They will return, in greater numbers, with greater fire. His mandibles flared wide, a predator's snarl twisted into triumph. But we will be ready. For every world they send against us, for every warrior they bring, we will hunt them. We will break them. We will add their skulls to our halls. The army roared again, shaking the heavens. Weapons were raised, blades clashed, and the war drums of Yautja Prime thundered through the mountains. The king watched the skies. He had seen the measure of this Imperium. Now the Imperium would see the measure and courage of the hunters. Far above, unseen by either Predator or Imperium, a small Tau drone hovered silently in the void, cloaked in refractive fields. Its lenses glowed faintly as it recorded every moment. The ambush, the retreat, the defiance of the Predator army. On board a slender Tau explorer vessel, water-cast envoys studied the feed in silence. One leaned forward, his eyes wide with fascination. "They are strong," she murmured. "Fierce, organized, an entire world bound by the hunt. The Imperium will come again, and when it does, there will be blood beyond measure." Her colleague folded his hands. "This is why we must move quickly. Such a world, such a people, if they could be brought into the greater good, they would be invaluable." The two envoys shared a look, silent understanding passing between them. "Prepare an emissary," the older of the two finally said. "We will offer them alliance, protection, purpose. If they accept, Yautja Prime will be more than just a fortress. It could be the sword of the Tau Empire." The younger envoy nodded, his eyes returning to the image of the Predator King rallying his army. "And if they refuse?" The older's voice was quiet and steady. "Then the humans will wipe them out, as is their way." The jungle skies of Yautja Prime boiled with heat and storm. The twin suns burned through broken clouds, lighting the fortress temple of the Predator King in a harsh brilliance. Below, the mountain thrummed with the drums of war, the echo of thousands of warriors still ringing from their vow of defiance. It was then that the sky split again. Not with the thunder of Imperium bombardment, not with the flare of alien weaponry, but with silence. A glimmer descended from the void, cloaked in refractive fields. The Yautja hunters snarled, their mandibles clicking in alarm, weapons raised as the object drifted downward. At first it was thought a weapon, an enemy trap falling from orbit. Plasma casters were primed, their targeting arrays shimmered. The object touched down on the stone causeway before the Predator King's fortress. Its shape was small, round, lenses glowing faint blue. It was a drone. Warriors surged forward, roaring, their wrist blades drawn, ready to crush the thing beneath talons and steel. "Stop!" The king's voice rolled across the courtyard, deep as thunder. His colossal frame stood unmoved at the temple's entrance, crown of bone and metal gleaming in the light. He raised one massive, scarred arm, halting his people with a single gesture. The drone rose on anti-grav thrusters, its lenses turning upward, locking on to the king. A shimmer of static passed across its shell, and then a voice emerged. Alien, distorted, but clear. "Warriors of Yautja Prime, I am the voice of the Tau. We come not as enemies. We come to speak. Your enemy is our enemy. Your strength, our ally. We seek audience with your leader." The king tilted his head. His mandibles clicked, a sound halfway between amusement and contempt. "I do not speak to machines," he growled, voice amplified by the temple runes. "If your masters wish to speak, let them stand before me in flesh and blood. Only then will I listen." The drone paused, its lenses flickered. Then the voice replied, "As you command, great hunter. We will come." The drone shut down, silent, waiting. The king turned away, his warriors bristling around him. "Let them come. If they bring deception, we will feed the suns with their skulls." An hour later, the skies burned again, not with fire, but with light. A Tau vessel descended through the atmosphere, its sleek hull gleaming silver blue against the jungle's emerald canopy. Engines purred with restrained grace, gliding the craft down toward the mountain temple. Yautja warships tracked its descent, cloaked figures poised in the trees, their plasma casters aimed. But no shot was fired. Not yet. The vessel landed upon the causeway with a hiss of hydraulics. Its ramp descended, steam curling from its edges. First came the fire warriors. Armor of cerulean plates gleamed in the sunlight, their pulse rifles raised in disciplined formation. Though their helmets masked their faces, their body language betrayed unease. Their movements were stiff, their weapons too tightly gripped. To stand before the Yautja was to stand before living predators, giants whose very presence radiated hunger, aggression, and violence. But then came the envoy, a water-cast diplomat, tall and slender, ropes of flowing pattern with the glyphs of diplomacy. His eyes glowed faint in the sunlight, and his hands were clasped together in a practiced calm. His voice, when it came, was smooth as running water. "Great king of hunters," he said, his words carried by a translator drone. "I am Kelvera, envoy of the Tau. I come with peace in hand and alliance in heart." The Predator King descended the steps of his fortress, each stride shaking the stone. His size dwarfed the fire warriors, his crown of bone gleaming like the skull of a monster. Around him, his people roared, a sound that made even the armored Tau falter. The king stopped only meters from the envoy. He leaned close, mandibles clicking, breath like furnace heat. "Speak," he rumbled. "But know this, I have no need of weakling words. We live only for the hunt." Envoy Calveira spread his hands, unshaken. "Then perhaps, mighty one, we are not so different. For the Tau hunt also, not for prey, but for peace, for unity, for the greater good." At that, the Predator King's laughter rolled across the mountain like thunder, deep, booming, and terrible. His warriors joined him, mandibles wide, voices a chorus of savage mirth. "You hunt for peace," the king mocked. "We hunt for glory, for blood, for the skulls of worthy foes. Your greater good means nothing, an excuse for cowards who fear a true fight." The envoy did not flinch. Instead, he pressed a button on his wrist console. A hologram flared to life between them, a projection of Tau fleets, sleek and vast, bristling with weapons, hunter cadres, fire warrior legions, battlesuits towering like gods of war. "These are our gifts," Calveira said softly. "The strength of the Tau Empire. Ships that move faster than light, weapons that strike with the fire of the stars. If you join us, all of this can be yours, and more." The Predator warriors hissed, muttering in their guttural tongue. Some snarled at the implication of weakness, but others growled with interest. Calveira's voice lowered. "The Imperium will return. They always return. And when they do, they will burn your world until nothing remains. Without allies, without technology, even the fiercest of hunters will fall." At that, the Yautja roared in fury. To suggest weakness was an insult. Plasma casters flared, warriors moved forward, snarling, ready to kill. The king raised one massive hand. Instantly, silence fell. His burning gaze locked onto the envoy. "You say that we are weak, that we will fall, but we are Yautja. We will fight until the suns die. We will carve skulls from our enemies until none remain, even if it is our last breath." The envoy did not waver, but instead his tone shifted. He bowed slightly. "Then you are the kind of warriors we admire, and the kind we need." The king tilted his head, interest flickering. Calveira continued, voice smooth as silk. "We have brought many fierce peoples into the Tau Empire. The Kroot, the Vespid, warrior races whose bloodlust and ferocity serve the greater good. They fight as they live, to hunt, to kill. Yet they do so with better tools, with purpose, with allies who would grant them endless prey." He stepped forward, fire warriors tense behind him. "Join us, mighty hunters. Arm yourselves with our weapons. And when the Imperium returns, you will not only survive, you will thrive. You will have endless hunts across endless stars, with prey worthy of your name." For the first time, the Predator King went silent. His mandibles clicked slowly. his burning gaze still locked on the envoy. His warriors shifted uneasily, torn between contempt and curiosity. Kelveyra pressed one final button. The Tau ship's cargo ramp hissed open, revealing stacked crates. Fire warriors dragged them forward, opening them to reveal rows and rows of sleek pulse rifles. Their blue glow shimmered with deadly promise. "A gift," Kelveyra said. "A token of trust. Take these and more. Test them. If you are ready for more, if you are ready for ships, for battle suits, for the fire of the stars, you need only fire just one weapon." He placed a small device upon the stone floor. Its faint glow pulsed like a heartbeat. The king stared at it, stared at the rifles, the cannons, their power undeniable. His warriors growled, excitement flickering in their tones. At last he spoke. "You may leave. You live only because I allow it. We will test your weapons. We will consider your words. But if you deceive us, I will hunt you to the edge of the galaxy." Kelveyra bowed. We would expect nothing less. He and his fire warriors retreated, boarding their ship, which lifted skyward in silence. On the mountain, the Predator King remained, his warriors gathering around the alien weapons, testing their weight, their fire, their potential. The king turned his gaze skyward, mandibles flaring. He was considering. For the first time in centuries, he was unsure. Far away, in the cold void of space, the eternal vigil drifted like a scarred leviathan. Minor repairs had been made, her scars patched with steel and prayer. Its hull still bristled with weapons, its void shields humming with renewed strength. Inquisitor Kael Varane stood once more at his command pulpit, eyes burning with purpose. Before him, servitors and adepts knelt in devotion as the final preparations were completed. A voice rose from the bridge crew. "Lord Inquisitor, the cyclonic torpedoes are loaded. Exterminatus protocols stand ready." Another voice, mechanical and harsh. "Warp calculations complete. Course for Yautja Prime is locked." Varane's lips curled into a smile. "Set course," he said softly. "This time, we leave none alive." The eternal vigil cut through the dark like a crimson blade. Its scarred hull bore the marks of its last clash with the hunters of Yautja Prime, but its wounds had been sutured with prayer and steel. Its weapon decks glowed like suns, waiting to be unleashed. On the command deck, Inquisitor Kael Varane stood, robes of crimson etched in gold, a silhouette of judgment beneath the cold glow of the hololiths. The chamber stank of incense and ozone, the scent of machine spirits bound in endless service. His eyes, pale, hard, merciless, gazed down at the world below. Yautja Prime, wild and green, its jungle steaming under the light of twin suns. The world of hunters. A world he had promised to scour clean. "Lord Inquisitor, the vessel stands ready. Macro cannon batteries are primed. Lance arrays charged," a servitor droned. Another voice, from his adjutant, a sharp-eyed woman in black carapace. "My lord, Shall we commence exterminatus protocols? Cyclonic torpedoes stand ready. One volley, and the vermin are ash. Varane's thin lips curled. His voice was soft, but it carried across the bridge like a knife, sliding into flesh. No, not yet. His attendants turned to him, confused. There may be relics below, Varane continued, his tone almost casual. Artifacts of value, perhaps fragments of their wretched technology. To annihilate them outright would be wasteful. He leaned forward, fingers drumming on the rail. And besides, slow bombardment is far more enjoyable. Let the vermin feel despair. Let them choke on fire before they die. He raised a hand. Commence orbital bombardment. Burn them, and burn them slowly. The Eternal Vigil's guns awoke. Lances of white fire stabbed from orbit, tearing through cloud and storm, slamming into Yautja Prime. Mountains were vaporized, jungles were reduced to oceans of flame. Cities of bone and steel, fortresses built by generations of hunters, collapsed into molten slag as macro shells the size of hab blocks slammed into them. The world bled. On the surface, fire fell like rain. Villages vanished in eruptions of plasma. Hunting temples cracked apart, spilling trophies from 1,000 worlds into ash. Entire clans were wiped away in a single lance strike, their warriors roaring defiance as they burned. Tens of thousands of Yautja died in the opening hours. Their blood steamed against stone. Their screams were lost in the thunder of the skies. But they did not run. They did not hide. They did not beg for mercy. The Predator King stood upon the highest terrace of his fortress, his eyes fixed on the heavens as fire rained. His colossal frame was framed by the flames, crown of bone gleaming. Around him, warriors gathered, some howling, some kneeling, some snarling for vengeance. One elder approached. "My king, our people are dying. The skies fall. What do we do?" The king's mandibles clicked slowly. His gaze never left the heavens. Then reluctantly, he turned toward the jungle slopes surrounding his fortress, where hidden beneath stone and foliage, the orbital defense cannons, gifted by the Tau, slumbered. Sleek towers of silver-blue alloy, their muzzles humming with contained plasma, waiting to roar. The king's claws clenched. To use the weapons of another was dishonor. To rely on outsiders was shame. But as another lance strike split the horizon, obliterating a hunting ground older than his dynasty, the king growled deep. "Awaken the cannons," he commanded. "If the sky demons wish to test us, then let them bleed with us." The mountains lit with alien fire. The new orbital defense cannons roared, hurling colossal boats of concentrated plasma into the sky. The beams cut through atmosphere in blinding arcs, slamming against the Eternal Vigil's void shields. At first, the Inquisitor laughed. From orbit, the ground fire seemed like mere sparks against a storm. But then, "Void shield integrity is failing," a tech priest screamed. "Unidentified energy signatures. Xenos origin." On the hololith, bright blue beams pierced through the shields, raking across the Vigil's hull. Armor cracked. flaring into molten rivers. A macro battery emplacement detonated in a chain reaction, fire crossing the ship's flank. Varane's smirk quickly vanished. His knuckles whitened as he gripped the rail. "Report. There's damage to the dorsal batteries. Breaches on decks 34 through 39. The casualty rate is rising." Another voice panicked. "My lord, the energy signatures. They match Tau technology." Silence fell across the bridge. Varane's pale eyes narrowed. His voice was low and venomous. "Tau. Yes, my lord. It's confirmed. The Xenos below wield weapons of the Tau Empire." Rage boiled across the Inquisitor's face. He slammed his hand against the pulpit. "They dare. These hunters dare arm themselves with alien filth, and the Tau dare interfere in my war." He raised his hand. "Enough. Ready the cyclonics. We cleanse this world now." Before the order could be carried out, alarms screamed across the bridge. "Multiple signatures incoming. Translation imminent." Varane spun toward the viewport as space tore open in shimmering light. A fleet emerged. Tau vessels, sleek and angular, their silver-blue hulls glowing with plasma cannons. Orca dropships, mantas, and escort frigates glided into formation, and at their center, a pair of emissary-class starships, their elegant spines bristling with railgun arrays and ion cannons. The Eternal Vigil turned its guns upon them. Macro cannons roared, lances seared. But the Tau replied. Railguns punched through void shields with impossible precision, their hypersonic rounds spearing into the Vigil's flanks, detonating deep within its armoured gut. Ion cannons flared in arcs of crackling light, tearing apart escort drones. Swarms of Barracuda fighters streaked through the void, weaving past flak to drop plasma bombs across the Vigil's hull. The strike cruiser shuddered under the assault. Decks were ruptured, atmosphere venting into the void. Servitors screamed as fire rolled across command decks. Varane clung to the pulpit, eyes wild. "Return fire! Destroy them!" But his officers shouted over the chaos. "Shields collapsing. Port guns are offline. Enemy railguns breaching decks 70 through 82. The Vigil burned. At last, Varane's voice cut through the firestorm, venomous and cold. "Break off. Retreat into the warp. Save the ship." The Eternal Vigil limped into warp space, bleeding fire, its fury unquenched. On the surface, the skies were aflame with debris. The Yautja howled in victory as the Tau fleet drove the Imperium Predator away. Hours later, the Tau vessel descended once more. Its ramp lowered, and Envoy Calveira stepped forth, flanked by his fire warrior guard. The Predator King awaited him, his mandibles tight with restrained fury. Around him, the hunters growled, standing proudly by the alien cannons they had manned. The envoy bowed. His voice was calm, smooth as always. "As we promised, we stood ready. Man always returns, and so did we." The king's eyes burned. "I did not ask for your help, water tongue." Calveira's lips curled into the faintest of smiles. "No, but you used the weapons we gave you. One might say you were asking for it." A chorus of growls erupted from the Yautja. The king himself snarled, towering over the envoy, his claws flexing. "Do not mock me, alien." But the Tau did not flinch. Instead, his voice lowered, smooth as silk. "The Imperium now knows you wield our weapons. Whether you wished it or not, you and the Tau are bound. To them, you are our allies. Our fate is yours." The king's breath was hot, furious, yet in his silence there was no denial. Calveira pressed on. "So choose, great hunter. Stand alone and be burned from the stars, or stand with us and have endless hunts across endless worlds." He gestured, and fire warriors dragged forward medpods. Within, Tau medics stirred, ready to tend to the wounded. "Let us begin, not with war, but with healing. Allow our medics to aid your fallen. Let this be the first step towards something greater." The king's eyes drifted across the courtyard. Thousands of Yautja lay dead or dying. Fires burned across the jungles, smoke blotting out the suns. The ground was littered with skulls. Not trophies, but the remains of his people. His claws clenched, his mandibles twitched. Fury burned in him. But then, slowly, stubbornly, he gave a single sharp nod. The Tau medics moved forward, and above, the sky still glowed with fire. The chamber was dark, lit only by flickering candles and the cold glow of data slates. Marble columns rose like pillars of judgment, and incense smoke curled in the vaulted heights. At the center stood a table of black adamantium, its surface etched with the sigils of the Inquisition. Inquisitor Varain stood rigid, his robes of crimson and gold flowing about his armored frame. His pale eyes burned with fury that months had not dimmed. His hand rested on the hilt of his blade, though here, among his peers, it was a gesture of pride rather than threat. Around the table sat his colleagues, lords and ladies of the holy ordos, each cloaked in authority older than dynasties. Their faces were shadows in the dimness, but their words carried the weight of the Imperium's judgment. "You failed, Varain." The voice came from Lady Inquisitor Drachma, a figure of ironed will and viper's tongue. Her armor gleamed with purity seals, her face hidden behind a mask wrought in the likeness of an angel. "You spoke of cleansing a nest of hunters. Instead, you return with scars and excuses." Varain's jaw clenched. "These hunters allied themselves with the Tau. My strike was sabotaged by Xenos interference. Their technology is nothing," interrupted another, Lord Lathian of the Ordo Xenos. His gaunt frame leaned forward, his eyes were sunken yet sharp. "If the Imperium desired the Tau destroyed, they would be ash already. Their worlds burn only because we permit them to exist. And yet you, Kael Varain, allowed these jungle beasts to rise into something greater than they ever were." Murmurs rippled around the chamber. Some voices hissed agreement. Others, softer, muttered caution. Varain slammed his fist against the table. "Do not dismiss the threat. These Yautja are predators without equal, Their world is now armed with Tau defenses, their warriors clad in alien warplate. They will hunt humanity across the stars unless we finish them now. For a moment, silence. Then a third voice, deep and resonant, spoke. Lord Inquisitor Malkian, Elder of the Ordo Xenos. His robes were plain, his face carved like stone. His presence was commanding, without the need for theatrics. No. Varain turned. No. Malkian's gaze pierced him. There are greater shadows moving. The Tyranids. A new splinter fleet has entered our galaxy. Reports from the Eastern Fringe speak of entire sectors consumed. If we are to deploy our fleets, it will not be to swat vermin who now squat in Tau shadows. It will be to face the great devourer before it drowns us all. Drachma inclined her head. You speak of Kraken? No, Malkian replied. Worse. A new brood, more adaptive, more cunning. If the reports are true, this hive fleet will make Kraken seem like an ember compared to a wildfire. Varain's lips curled in disgust. So we let these beasts live. We allow them to fight under alien banners, to stain the stars with their hunts. Malkian's voice was calm. For now, the hunters are not worth the blood we must shed elsewhere. When the Tyranids are broken, when the Imperium can spare the resources, then perhaps we will turn our gaze back to Yautja Prime. Until then, we fight the greater war. The Council murmured agreement. Scrolls were sealed, decisions etched into the records of the Ordos. Varain's fury smouldered, but he bowed his head. As the Council wills, he said, though the venom in his tone could have stripped steel. He turned and left the chamber, but in his heart he swore. One day he would return. One day, Yautja Prime would burn until nothing but ash remained. Months passed. On Yautja Prime, the fires of war were smothered beneath new growth. Jungles regrew over charred stone, but the ruins of the bombardment were not rebuilt as they were. They were upgraded. Tau engineers worked beside Yautja artisans, crafting fortresses of alloy and bone, blending alien elegance with hunter savagery. Plasma reactors hummed beneath mountains, powering forges where predator smiths reforged their weapons with Tau alloys. Orbital defense cannons, once hidden, now stood proud upon cliffs and ridges, their silver towers glinting like fangs against the sun. The Predator King strode through these works, silent and watchful. His people bore scars, but their eyes burned with renewed hunger. And now, their hunts stretched far across the galaxy. Across the stars, Yautja warriors now fought as allies of the Tau, not as conscripts nor slaves, but as specialists, living weapons unleashed against the Tau's most dangerous foes. Some fought as shock troopers, their armor laced with Tau energy shields, their wrist blades reforged with plasma edges. Others became assassins, cloaked in refractive fields, carrying railgun rifles longer than their own bodies. And some, those chosen by the king himself, became something greater. The Vishar, the Silent Skulls, elite hunter warriors, deployed only in the most desperate of battles. To the Tau, they were saviors. To the enemy, they were nightmares. The war came on the fringes of Dalith space. Orcs, brutal and unrelenting, poured into Tau systems in a green tide of steel and fire. Their warbands descended like meteors, choking skies with crude ships and their endless hunger for battle. The Tau were holding on, but barely. Even with their battle suits and railguns, the greenskin hordes pushed into their colonies. Cities burned, fleets cracked, and worlds trembled. And so, the Yautja were unleashed. The jungle of Yautja 4 burned with smoke and spores. Orcs rampaged through Tau trenches, their choppers tearing, their guns roaring, their laughter echoing like thunder. Crisis suits fell beneath waves of boys, their plasma fire lost in the tide. At the center of the storm stood the war boss, a giant of muscle and iron. Its armor was layered with trophies of bone and skull. Its claw crackled with stolen energy fields. Its roar shook the battlefield. Every swing crushed the Tau lines. Every step was a hammer blow. It roared, tearing a battlesuit in half with a single swipe. The Tau began to falter. Pulse fire raked across its armor, but barely slowed it. Even railguns from hammerheads cracked, but did not fell the beast. And then from the smoke, a shape emerged. He was tall, even for his kind, his frame encased in black armor, streaked with glowing blue lines. A Tau shield generator hummed at his wrist, deflecting stray shots. His mask glinted glyphs of both Yautja and Tau, twin legacies carved into one. On his shoulders mounted a weapon unlike any his people had borne before, a railgun, compact, yet monstrous, crafted for one purpose: to kill the enemies of the Tau, no matter how strong. Its barrel glowed, coils humming with stored power. The Predator's mandibles spread wide in a silent roar. The orcs were laughing, pointing, bellowing challenges. The warboss turned, eyes narrowing as it saw the lone hunter step forward. "Come on then," the beast roared. "Come fight the boss." The Predator did not answer with words. The railgun fired. The world froze in that instant. A beam of hypersonic energy lanced from the hunter's shoulder, streaking faster than sight. It struck the warboss square in the skull. For a heartbeat, nothing. Then the orc's head detonated. Bone, flesh, and iron vaporized in a storm of molten fragments. The warboss's body collapsed like a felled titan, its claws sparking, its roars silenced forever. The orcs were in shock. The Predator roared in triumph, a sound primal and terrible, mandibles wide as he raised his arms to the sky. The Tau lines, emboldened, surged forward, pulse rifles blazing. The greenskin horde was overrun. Victory was theirs. In the aftermath, the Predator stood upon the warboss's corpse. He tore the claw from its gauntlet, raising it high as a trophy. His railgun hummed, its coils cooling, a weapon of the stars married to the bloodlust of a hunter. Envoy Kelvera watched from the command deck of his manta above, lips curving in satisfaction. "The greater good takes many forms," he murmured. And on Yautja Prime, the king gazed at the stars from his throne of bone and steel. His people had found new prey, new hunts across endless worlds. with Tau weaponry, with their ancient bloodlust. They would carve their names into the galaxy,